March 3rd is the 62nd day of the year, 63rd in leap years, in the Gregorian calendar. 303 days remain until the end of the year. Events pre-1600 473 Gundobad, nephew of Ricimer, nominates Glycerus as emperor of the Western Roman Empire. 724 Empress Gensha abdicates the throne in favor of her nephew Shomu, who becomes emperor of Japan. 1575 Mughal Emperor Akbar defeats Sultan of Bengal Dad Khan Karani's army at the Battle of Tukaroy. 1585 The Olympic Theatre, designed by Andrea Palladio, is inaugurated in Vicenza. 1601 to 1776 American Revolutionary War. The first amphibious landing of the United States Marine Corps begins the Battle of Nassau. 1779 American Revolutionary War. The Continental Army is routed at the Battle of Briar Creek near Savannah, Georgia. 1799 The Russo-Ottoman siege of Corfu ends with the surrender of the French garrison. 1820 The U.S. Congress passes the Missouri Compromise. 1845 Florida is admitted as the 27th U.S. state. 1849 The territory of Minnesota is created. 1857 Second Opium War. France and the United Kingdom declare war on China. 1859 The two-day Great Slave Auction, the largest such auction in United States history, concludes. 1861 Alexander II of Russia signs the Emancipation Manifesto, freeing serfs. 1873 Censorship in the United States. The U.S. Congress enacts the Comstock Law, making it illegal to send any obscene literature and articles of immoral use through the mail. 1875 The first ever organized indoor game of ice hockey is played in Montreal, Quebec, Canada as recorded in the Montreal Gazette. 1878 The Russo-Turkish War ends with Bulgaria regaining its independence from the Ottoman Empire according to the Treaty of San Stefano. 1891 Shoshone National Forest is established as the first national forest in the U.S. and world. 1901 Present 1910 Rockefeller Foundation. John D. Rockefeller Jr. announces his retirement from managing his businesses so that he can devote all his time to philanthropy. 1913 Thousands of women march in the women's suffrage procession in Washington, D.C. 1918 Russia signs the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, agreeing to withdraw from World War I, and conceding German control of the Baltic states, Belarus and Ukraine. It also conceded Turkish control of Ardahan, Kars and Batumi. 1924 The 407-year-old Islamic Caliphate is abolished, when Caliph Abdulmesid II of the Ottoman Caliphate is deposed. The last remnant of the old regime gives way to the reformed Turkey of Kemal Ataturk. 1924 The Free State of Fiume is annexed by the Kingdom of Italy. 1931 The United States adopts the Star-Spangled Banner as its national anthem. 1938 Oil is discovered in Saudi Arabia. 1939 In Bombay, Mohandas Gandhi begins a hunger strike to protest the autocratic rule in British India. 1945 People are killed in an arson attack on the offices of the communist newspaper Flamman in Luleå, Sweden. 1942 World War II. 10 Japanese warplanes raid Broome, Western Australia, killing more than 100 people. 1943 World War II. In London, 173 people are killed in a crush while trying to enter an air raid shelter at Bethnal Green Tube Station. 1944 The Order of Nakhimov and Order of Ushakov are instituted in USSR as the highest naval awards. 1944 A freight train carrying stowaway passengers stalls in a tunnel shortly after departing from Balvano, Basilicata, Italy just after midnight, with 517 dying from carbon monoxide poisoning. 1945 World War II. American and Filipino troops recapture Manila. 1945 World War II. The RAF accidentally bombs the Bezuidenhout area of The Hague, Netherlands, killing 511 people. 1951 Jackie Brenston, with Ike Turner and his band, records Rocket 88, often cited as the first rock and roll record, at Sam Phillips's recording studios in Memphis, Tennessee. 1953 A de Havilland Comet, Canadian Pacific Airlines, crashes in Karachi, Pakistan, killing 11. 1958 Nuri al-Said becomes Prime Minister of Iraq for the 8th time. 1969 Apollo program. NASA launches Apollo 9 to test the lunar module. 1972 Mohawk Airlines Flight 405 crashes as a result of a control malfunction and insufficient training in emergency procedures. 1974 Turkish Airlines Flight 981 crashes at Ermenonville near Paris, France, killing all 346 aboard. 1980 The USS Nautilus is decommissioned and stricken from the Naval Vessel Register. 1985 Arthur Scargill declares that the National Union of Mineworkers National Executive voted to end the longest-running industrial dispute in Great Britain without any peace deal over pit closures. 1985 A magnitude 8.3 earthquake strikes the Valparaiso region of Chile, killing 177 and leaving nearly 1 million people homeless. 1986 The Australia Act 1986 commences, causing Australia to become fully independent from the United Kingdom. 1991 An amateur video captures the beating of Rodney King by Los Angeles police officers. 1991 United Airlines Flight 585 crashes on its final approach to Colorado Springs. 2005 James Roscoe murders 4 Royal Canadian Mounted Police constables during a drug bust at his property in Rockfort Bridge, Alberta, then commits suicide. This is the deadliest peacetime incident for the RCMP since 1885 in the Northwest Rebellion. 2005 Steve Fossett becomes the first person to fly an airplane non-stop around the world solo without refueling. 2005 Margaret Wilson is elected as Speaker of the New Zealand House of Representatives, beginning a period lasting until August 23, 2006, where all the highest political offices, including Elizabeth II as head of state, were occupied by women, making New Zealand the first country for this to occur. 2013 A bomb blast in Karachi, Pakistan, kills at least 45 people and injured 180 others in a predominantly Shia Muslim area. 2017 The Nintendo Switch releases worldwide. Births pre-1600-1455 John II of Portugal, d. 1495-1455 Ascanio Sforza, Catholic Cardinal, d. 1505-1506 Luís of Portugal, Duke of Beja, d. 1555-1520 Matthias Flacius, Croatian theologian and reformer, d. 1575-1583 Edward Herbert, 1st Baron Herbert of Cherbury, English-Welsh soldier, historian, and diplomat, d. 1648-1589 Gisbertus Voetius, Dutch minister, theologian, and academic, d. 1676-1601 to 1900-1606 Edmund Waller, English poet and politician, d. 1687-1652 Thomas Otway, English playwright and author, d. 1685-1678 Madeleine de Verscheers, Canadian rebel leader, d. 1747-1756 William Godwin, English journalist and author, d. 1836-1778 Frederica of Mecklenburg-Strelitz, d. 1841-1793 William Macready, English actor and manager, d. 1873-1800 Heinrich Georg Braun, German geologist and paleontologist, d. 1862-1803 Thomas Field Gibson, English manufacturer who aided the welfare of the Spitalfield silk weavers, d. 1889-1805 Jonas Ferrer, Swiss politician, d. 1861-1816 William James Blacklock, English-Scottish painter, d. 1858-1819 Gustave de Molinari, Dutch-Belgian economist and theorist, d. 1912-1825 Shiranui Komen, Japanese sumo wrestler, d. 1879-1831 George Pullman, American engineer and businessman, founded the Pullman Company, d. 1897-1839 Jamsetji Tata, Indian businessman, founded Tata Group, d. 1904-1841 John Murray, Canadian-Scottish oceanographer and biologist, d. 1914-1845 Georg Cantor, Russian-German mathematician and philosopher, d. 1918-1847 Alexander Graham Bell, Scottish-American engineer and academic, invented the telephone, d. 1922-1860 John Montgomery Ward, American baseball player and manager, d. 1925-1866 Fred A. Buss, American lawyer and politician, 39th Mayor of Chicago, d. 1914-1868 Émile Chartier, French philosopher and journalist, d. 1951-1869 Henry Wood, English conductor, d. 1944-1871 Maurice Guérin, Italian-French cyclist, d. 1957-1873 William Green, American Union leader and politician, d. 1952-1880 Florence Auer, American actress and screenwriter, d. 1962-1880 Yosuke Matsuoka, Japanese politician, Japanese Minister of Foreign Affairs, d. 1946-1882 Elizabeth Abig, German anti-Nazi resistance fighter, d. 1974-1882 Charles Ponzi, Italian businessman, d. 1949-1883 Cyril Burt, English psychologist and geneticist, d. 1971-1883 Paul Méré de Beauchamp, French zoologist, d. 1977, 1887 Lincoln J. Beechey, American pilot, d. 1915, 1891 Damaskinos of Athens, Greek Archbishop, d. 1949, 1893 Beatrice Wood, American illustrator and potter, d. 1998, 1895 Ragnar Frisch, Norwegian economist and academic, Nobel Prize laureate, d. 1973, 1895 Matthew Ridgway, American general, d. 1993, 1898 Emil Artin, Austrian-German mathematician and academic, d. 1962, 1900 Edna Best, British stage and film actress, appeared on early television in 1938, d. 1974, 1901 Present 1901 Claude Choles, English-Australian soldier, d. 2011, 1902 Ruby Dandridge, African-American film and radio actress, d. 1987, 1903 Vasily Kozlov, Belarusian general and politician, d. 1967, 1906 Artur Lundqvist, Swedish poet and critic, d. 1991, 1911 Jean Harlow, American actress, d. 1937, 1911 Hugh Lapointe, Canadian lawyer and politician, 22nd Lieutenant Governor of Quebec, d. 1982, 1913 Margaret Bonds, American pianist and composer, d. 1972, 1913 Harold J. Stone, American actor, d. 2005, 1914 Asger Jorn, Danish painter and sculptor, d. 1973, 1916 Paul Halmos, Hungarian-American mathematician, d. 2006, 1917 Samira Musa, Egyptian physicist and academic, d. 1952, 1918 Arthur Kornberg, American biochemist and academic, Nobel Prize laureate, d. 2007, 1920 Julius Boros, American golfer and accountant, d. 1994, 1920 James Doohan, Canadian-American actor and soldier, d. 2005, 1920 Ronald Searle, English-French soldier and illustrator, d. 2011, 1921 Diana Barrymore, American actress, d. 1960, 1922 Nander Hajduk-Kuti, Hungarian footballer and manager, d. 2002, 1923 Barney Ma,